The Guard Market is a digital marketplace that provides customers with access to licensed security professionals on demand. Let's face it, you have a lot to do running your business, and security, well, that's our business. We take the hassle out of searching, vetting, and scheduling private security guards for your unique needs. Just tell us what you need, when you need it, and we'll handle the rest. Guard Market security service partners are carefully screened and thoroughly vetted to meet the demanding needs of our diverse client base. Using advanced technology, we match you with the most qualified service provider based upon your specific needs and geographic requirements. For more information, you can visit our website at www.theguardmarket.com and call Andrew at 732-266-9344 with your service requests today. The Guard Market, security on demand.
All right, and a good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Three Rivers Broadcasting. My name is Alex Fidrashevsky. For the next hour, I'll be bringing you nothing but the best in soccer talk right here on the new voice of Pittsburgh. Again, we are Three Rivers Broadcasting. Let's jump right into the show. We've got a lot to talk about. I'll be with you again every Monday night at 7. And we talk about the beautiful game. JJ, he's still fighting the good fight for us. We'll have him in here soon. Hopefully his work schedule lighten up just a little bit. We'll be able to get our beloved co-host back in here. But again, JJ fights the good fight for us at the American Cancer Society, Lehigh Valley, back in Allentown. So listen, JJ always gets a pass anytime something like that comes up. But let's jump right into it, man. The Euros are certainly not disappointing us locally here. The Pittsburgh Riverhounds, hey, they're turning the corner, playing very well right now. They had a fantastic week last week, coming away with 7 points. Big win down in Tampa at the weekend. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes, but I want to start off with the Euros because, man, it just gets better and better and better. High drama across the weekend and more of it to come. After losing to Slovakia, and I'm going to start here, Poland comes away with a 1-1 draw, gutsy 1-1 draw against Spain to keep their hopes alive in the Euros. And then Sweden beats Slovakia. So Sweden has put themselves in a position where they're out of the group now. So it's down to the final day here to see if it will be... will it be Poland, will it be Slovakia, or will it be Spain that joins them going forward? But now I got to watch that match, and then we'll get on to today, because today was fantastic as well. There were 2 great games played later in the day, and then we want to touch on an international farewell for Goran Pandev, who has spent the bulk of his career, with the exception of a spell off to Galatasaray in Serie A in Italy. He hung up the boots for now North Macedonia, formerly the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. They played as Macedonia until 2019. Now they are the North Macedonians. And I'm not going to get into the geopolitical stuff. I don't really know why they changed it, but they're North Macedonia now, not just Macedonia. But Pandev hangs up the boots, at least at the international level, so we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. Now that we got the introduction out of the way, again, I want to talk about what happened with Poland and Spain. I know I'm a bit of a homer. I'm Polish. You know, it's in my blood, so I was pretty amped up to watch the game. I had the jersey on during the polka show on Saturday, and the fingernails were, well, I don't bite my nails, but if I did, they would have just been doing this the entire match. It would have been like a typewriter. And, I want to give credit where it's due to our side. Kamil Glik was a rock in the back, and I know Lewandowski was the one who got the goal off of a very nice cross from Jóźwiak, but without Glik, I don't think Poland gets the point. He was a boss in the back. He was the rock that Poland needed in the match, and there's really not much else you could say about his performance. The stat line spoke for himself. He was a masterful performance at center back for the Polish national team. And again, Lewandowski opened his account. I think a lot of folks figured it would have come against Slovakia in the first game. First game was very disjointed. Poland didn't look good. Paid for it. Wojciech Szczesny makes up for the gaffe against Slovakia. Played very, very well against Spain. Came up with some big saves. And Poland really hunkered in late and got some good clearances to to preserve the draw. So now it's all to play for on Wednesday afternoon. So you know I'm going to be talking about it Wednesday night on the Pittsburgh Sports Report with Andy and Jordan. You know it's coming because the match will be over. I'll either be flying high wearing the jersey, or I'll be slunked off in the corner away from the screen, and Jordan and Andrew will handle the show because I'll be nursing my wounds. We'll have to see what happens, but it's all to play for now. So you couldn't have asked for a more dramatic finish to Group E in the Euros. Spain plays Slovakia, and then Poland against Sweden. It's really just down to getting a result now for the Polish side. Got to go in and go at the Swedes and get the points. Coming up tomorrow, we've got another big game in the Euros. You've got Croatia taking on Scotland in a wild group now that the Czech Republic and England have advanced out of. So, Scottish side still alive. I figured England was going to handle them pretty easily. I think everyone did. The Scots got through it 0-0 to hang on just enough where they've got a puncher's chance. They need to take the points off of Croatia, but they've certainly got a puncher's chance to finish third and maybe make the knockouts. Then you start the permutations of points and goal differentials and all of that good stuff. The only one that's locked in right now is Switzerland on 4 points. They are locked in as a third place team. Everybody else, it's kind of up for grabs coming into the last 2-3 days of the group stage. It should be really wild. I'm looking forward to watching it. And then on the final day, you've got Portugal against France and then Germany against Hungary in another group where outside of the French, everybody's still alive. Everybody's still alive, and that has to do with the fact that the Hungarians nicked a point off the French that they weren't supposed to get. Maybe the fact that they played in Budapest and there were 56,000 people there because there are no restrictions in Hungary played a part in it, but it doesn't matter. They got the goal. They had the lead at halftime, but they got a point. So now they go into a match in Munich against Germany where it's all to play for. You get the win, and you got a good shot at going through. And for Portugal and France, again, France has advanced, but Portugal all to play for. It's what you want to see in these tournaments. You don't want a team that's knocked out after, 2 games where that, coming into the final game, there's nothing to play for. And maybe the expanded Euro benefited in that. The way they've set up things and, maybe the third place team's having an opportunity to go through now. Maybe it does something. But today we had a wild one there where Belgium had a goal disallowed, and then there was all types of drama. They did take 2 from Finland to win the match, but the real drama on the day was at the Parkenstadion in Copenhagen, where the Danes were looking fantastic, flying high, up 2-0, with the goal that they needed from Poulsen. Russia gets one back on a... You could call it a weak penalty. It was a little bit of a weak penalty. I'll say it was a weak penalty. Russia gets one back on a weak penalty from Dzyuba and then capitulates. Beautiful strike. Andreas Christensen in the 79th minute to make it 3-1 and restore that hope for the Danes, who again had just such a horrific start to the tournament. The loss to Finland, where they had to finish the match. After having one of their best players go down with a heart attack, basically. I believe that was what they said was the result of Eriksson. He suffered cardiac arrest, early on in the match. A lot of teams would have just rolled over the rest of the tournament after that. And, the Danes, 3 points in that group turned out to be enough. And they needed some goals to get it done. But Russia put themselves back in the driver's seat and then fell apart. And Christensen's goal was an absolute howler, a laser from about 25 yards. But I put this out on Twitter during the match as this was going on, after Christensen hit that goal. What are you doing if you're the Russian defender? Clearing the ball up the center of the pitch. You're taught as a 6-year-old, even in the United States, where our youth soccer coaching is bad at best for most of the country. In the rec leagues, ours was above average where I was. I think, the coaches, and I'm not just saying this because my dad was a coach, but these guys, the whole lot of them, the whole way through, the 8 guys that coached these teams, 2 for each team, had an assistant, and then we got bigger groups as we went along through the ages. But these guys knew what they were doing, and they taught us in like 3rd grade the idea of when in doubt, clear it out, as in kick the ball out of bounds. You never, ever clear the ball up the middle, because when you clear the ball up the middle, you have to turn essentially, and I'm breaking this down into layman's terms, you have to turn your whole team around when you do that, and there's a hole. There's a hole in the middle of the park where the defensive midfielder, if they're pushed up far enough for the other team, is going to have a free crack at goal. And that's what happened here. You had a central midfielder who was sitting deep, but he was up just far enough because of where the action was and the pressure that the Danes were putting on, where when the ball was cleared up the middle in the center of the park, you're talking training ground after practice run up. You don't even get that clear of a look in training most of the time. He had nobody within 10 yards of him because of the way the ball was cleared by the Russian defender. He hit that perfectly. And again, you could see as everybody was turning, he was already driving through the ball. And when it went 3-1 and swung the pendulum again, you knew it was over. They added another one 3 minutes later, and they've got now their Cinderella story, especially given what happened to Eriksson. And I think now everybody's rooting for the Danes the rest of the way. No matter who you are, you're in the back of your mind, unless you're Wales right now because they got to play them next, everybody else is probably rooting for Denmark to beat Wales because they're the feel-good team now. But man, I tell you, I had it on here in the office while I was working on a proposal from the group that we met this morning. And it was, I didn't watch much soccer last year, and I will admit this. I couldn't do it, the empty stadiums and all of that. I couldn't get into it. And I know there was pressure and things on the line, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Seeing people back in the stands, whether it's 60,000 in Hungary or 30,000 in Denmark today, and you watch these scenes unfold, half of the fun isn't the goal. It isn't the challenge, the saved penalty kick, whatever it is. It's the reaction when it happens. And that builds and builds and builds. When today's game, for example, Damsgaard scores, they're up 1-0 at halftime. There's a little bit of a buzz. Poulsen scores. Now the place is rocking, and then you have the emotional drop-off when Zuba scores. That, to me, is the beauty of the sport. That's why you watch it. It's why you get into it. Because of the highs and lows that come, not just from the goal or the save or the corner kick or whatever it is, but from the emotion that just oozes out of the ground when that happens. But masterful last 15 minutes from Denmark. Awful last 15 minutes for the Russians today. Couldn't have gone worse for them. But it was a Russian side that I think even Stanislav Cherchesov, the Russian bear, knew wasn't up to snuff. It was a Russian side that brought everybody they had at the moment and just wasn't good enough and couldn't close it out. But it was a great, great day to watch from a purely fan perspective, to not even get into any of the broadcast breakdown of it, because I think that's how I watched the games this afternoon. This wasn't from a broadcasting perspective or from an analytical perspective. I sat down, and I think it's probably with the exception of the two Poland games, the only day of the tournament where I sat there on the edge of my seat as a fan of the game and just soaked it all in, where I'm watching the Denmark-Russia game as reports are trickling in about goals in the Belgium match and end up being disallowed, and it gets better and better all the way through to the end. That was beautiful to watch. You know what else was beautiful to watch yesterday? The Italians, who got the win over Wales, who dominated Switzerland on the 16th and took Turkey to the cleaners on the 11th. Are they one of the top 3 teams in the world right now? I think so. Are they maybe the best? Might be them or Belgium. The French are still really good, but it might be them or Belgium right now. Because Belgium found a way thus far in the tournament to go through the group. And they're very, very deep, very, very talented. But the roster that Roberto Mancini has put together for the Italians, the Azzurri are on a whole nother level. Number of games without a loss. I mean, calendar years worth now. He also, I think in a nod to him not playing as kind of the odd man out in a World Cup, he made sure he got everybody into the match. Over the course of the group stage, I believe the only player that did not play was the third goalkeeper, Alex Murray. Everyone else played. He used 25 of his 26 players in the group stage. What does that mean to the average person who maybe doesn't understand the sport that well, as opposed to somebody like myself who eats, sleeps, and breathes it? If you're a new person to soccer because of us here at Three Rivers Broadcasting, to go into a major tournament where you're going to get the best of everybody and be so confident that you can squad rotate in the group stage and still win the group is gutsy, if not cocky, if not a little bit insane. To do it without giving up a goal is depth. There may not be a team on the continent outside of, I said, the French, who had probably a second team. There may not be a team on the continent as deep as the Italians are right now. The Belgians aren't. They've got their A team, and they're really, really good. Don't get me wrong. This is a super talented Belgian team. But the Italians have probably 5, 6, 7 guys who didn't make the team that could have, just like the French did. But the 26 they have, specifically the 23 outfield players, are at a very elite level right now. And Mancini and his assistant coaches have perfected the national team game for the Italians. And I really do think right now, them and Belgium, prior to the tournament, I said it was France's to lose. France has advanced out of the group. But France looked, good. But have they looked the level of the French potential? I don't think they've played to it yet. Now, that could still come. That could still come in the knockout stage. If they win the group, they could take on Switzerland. Who finished third, provided they advance. And I believe, again, Switzerland has secured that. The French should handle them relatively easily, considering the Italians did just that and looked very good doing it on the 16th. Italy looked, again, very good, even, in a 1-0 win over Wales. Are they now the team to beat? It's possible. They could be. And I think it was a nice nod of the cap to rest Donnarumma for Salvatore Sirigu in net to get the 34-year-old an appearance in a major tournament. He made his senior debut for the national team in 2010. He's now 34. He'll be 35 next year. He's the goalkeeper for Torino. He has played in 3 Euros. He was named in 12, in 16, and now for this one. He was on the 13 Confederations Cup team, and he was at the 14 World Cup. But he was there as a backup to De Sanctis and Buffon and others. He was generally the third goalkeeper. And then Donnarumma crashed the party, and he remained the third goalkeeper. I think right now he's probably the second keeper, and he's in that elder statesman spot a lot of national teams like to utilize the third goalkeeper for, to bring the guy in who's a lifer, who's been very good, to teach the next set of guys, especially now that Buffon has moved off. Sirigu is the guy to work with the younger players like Donnarumma and Meret and others, and to pass on a little bit of knowledge, especially for a guy like Donnarumma, who started for Italy for the first time at 17 years old. He's now 22. And he's moving on now from AC Milan to go to PSG. He just passed his medical today. Saw that report come across. On a salary of 12 million euro for a 5-year deal. So 12 million a season. According to, I think The Guardian put that out last week or 2 weeks ago. That was the offer. A number that Milan probably couldn't reach. They were looking for $1 million a month. PSG can afford $1 million a month. And Mino Raiola wanted something like 25 million for the deal, which Milan just not in a position to do right now. But that said, you bring a guy like Sirigu in to work with him, and he was rewarded for that. And for all of the years he spent being the third goalkeeper, to give him an appearance in a group stage match that wasn't iced away. This wasn't, again, and maybe, okay, it was a spot appearance or, whatever it is. But to get him in, even if for a few minutes, it says a lot about Mancini. Now, Italy will take on Austria on the 26th in London. They should handle the Austrians with a hand tied behind their back. I think that should go without saying. We've got some other games, again, that we'll have to touch on. It's all to play for, Scotland and Croatia. And we'll get to that next time here on the show because we'll have results. Tomorrow, those games are, again, Croatia and Scotland, Czech Republic and England. Scotland down a man from the Rona. England potentially down 2 that they've put into isolation from exposure to the Scottish player. Again, we don't go into the virology of it on this show, but a couple of guys are going to be missing for either side come tomorrow. And Croatia, JJ texted me during one of the Poland matches and said, I think they may have made a mistake. Did the Croatia also go a tournament too far with a few of the guys? They might have. They might have gone one tournament too far with some of the players. Should Croatia get past Scotland? Yes. Will Croatia get past Scotland in Glasgow? Your guess is as good as mine, folks. Because I didn't think the Scots stood much of a puncher's chance against England. And there they were at the end of the game, level. Quickly want to touch on another set of matches from today. Austria defeated Ukraine 1-0 in Bucharest to secure second place. And the Netherlands, as we expected, defeated North Macedonia 3-0 in Amsterdam. Memphis Depay, Jorginho Wijnaldum scored the goals. The real talking point of the match, though, even from most media, wasn't the fact that the Dutch won 3-0. We expected the Dutch to handle this North Macedonia side, who was a little pesky against Ukraine and hung around for 80 minutes against Austria before it kind of faded away. But the real talking point of the day was that today was the final match in the international career. Not sure if he's hanging up the club boots yet. Haven't seen anything about that. I believe he may be hanging on for maybe one more year at the club level. Haven't heard anything about that yet. So I'm going to assume that that's still going on, that he's going to play 1 year further at least. It was the final national team game for Goran Pandev. And Pandev is probably the best player that most soccer fans don't know about from the Balkan region over the last 20 years. Everybody knows a lot of the Croatians. They know a few of the Slovenian players that have come through and the Serbians. But because they have never played in a major tournament prior to this, nobody really knew, unless you followed Serie A, knew who Pandev was. 37 years old. He made his debut for the national team 20 years ago, 2001. And, they were the first team eliminated. But Pandev scored a goal in the tournament. He scored North Macedonia's first goal against Austria. So his swan song for the national team sure went off in style. When he was subbed off, he got kind of the honor guard from his teammates, where they line up and they stop the match. So essentially Pandev could bow out in a blaze of glory, which was fitting for him. 122 appearances for the Macedonian national team, 38 goals over the course, again, of a 20-year run. And he's heavily, heavily involved in the development of the game in Macedonia. He has an academy that he's begun that now has a professional side, Futbolska Akademia Pandev in Strumica. And they've won their way up, and they got promotion in 2017 to the Macedonian First League, which a lot of people will say, well, what does that mean? It's Macedonia. That's how much Pandev values the sport. It's how much Pandev values developing the next generation of Macedonian talent. And his team even managed to qualify for the 1920 Europa League. They lost in the first qualifying round to Mostar from Bosnia, but they did well. They won the cup in 2018-2019, went to the cup final this year. And the BBC had asked a few of the other players. Kira Ristevski said that, quote, Pandev is like a king for what he does. I cannot even explain what an amazing guy he is, and on and on. He said there's no one like him in North Macedonia as a player and privately. And, again, he's very involved in the sport. And I think, there will be a future for Pandev in this game, not just as the owner of the academy. I could see him being involved in the national team setup there, potentially even as the coach one day. And again, he's had a very good club career as well. And he's one of those guys who flew under the radar that nobody really ever talked about because he never played in the Bundesliga, which gets a little more love. He never played in the Premier League. He never played in La Liga. Serie A has kind of been a forgotten league for quite some time. And I think a lot has to do with the fact that Juventus have been so good, so dominant, that there really hasn't been a lot of drama in the league. Napoli made a run a couple of years ago, but the fall off of the Milan sides for a while, I think, damaged the public perception and the reputation, especially with all the money that was being pumped into the Premier League. And it was a lot of money into the marketing, into the rosters, into all of this. And then the Bundesliga jumped on with Fox, and the Italian league was a bit forgotten. But I think it's one of the deeper leagues in Europe. And I think for me, the first probably 12 teams can really play, and even a few after that can really make your life difficult. I think a club like Fiorentina, who's kind of yo-yoing right now with Rocco Commisso, I think they're trying to figure out what's going on over there. I mean, gosh, it looks like they lost their manager after 3 weeks because I think it looks like Gattuso's going to move on, and they got some stuff to figure out. But when they can play, they can play. And the Italian league has always been a tough one. It's always been very talented, and I just think it hasn't gotten the love that it really deserves. Now, Inter won the league. Milan finished second. Atalanta tied Juventus for third place, and they both pipped Napoli by a point. So there was quite a bit of drama going down to the very end in Italy this year as far as who was going to make Champions League and Europa League, and even down at the other end, was it going to be Roma or Sassuolo that went to the Europa Conference, the new tournament, into the playoff round? Because that was coming down to the bitter end too. But again, back to Pandev, he's one of those guys that nobody really talked about. He won the treble with Inter under Jose, but he's been largely nondescript for much of his career, but he's always been consistent. And I think it's very good, and I think it's great that so many in the soccer media, whether it's the Sun or BBC, a lot of them have written about it. I think even I believe even the New York Times carried a piece on it, and here in the United States, the Raleigh News and Observer had a story yesterday about it. So there's, at least there's something coming his way at the end of his career, and he's even been very good for Genoa. Still, he had 7 goals this year in 30 matches, 9 last year. He's never been a world beater. His best days were with Lazio from 05 to I think it was 09-10. He left. Scored a good amount of goals for them. I think 60 or 70 for Lazio across all the competitions. So he's a good player. But he bids the international game at least farewell as North Macedonia bids the tournament farewell. We're going to take a quick 60-second pause, and then we're going to come back. We want to talk about the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, our hometown professional team here in Pittsburgh, in the Steel City, who have had a very, very good run of form. Win against the Indy 11 on the road, and the big win down in Tampa. It's been good. It's been good for them. But we're going to talk about that momentarily when we get back after this commercial break.
The Guard Market is a digital marketplace that provides customers with access to licensed security professionals on demand. Let's face it, you have a lot to do running your business, and security, well, that's our business. We take the hassle out of searching, vetting, and scheduling private security guards for your unique needs. Just tell us what you need, when you need it, and we'll handle the rest. Guard Market security service partners are carefully screened and thoroughly vetted to meet the demanding needs of our diverse client base. Using advanced technology, we match you with the most qualified service provider based upon your specific needs and geographic requirements. For more information, you can visit our website at www.theguardmarket.com and call Andrew at 732-266-9344 with your service requests today. The Guard Market, security on demand. Are you an athlete looking to take your game and performance to the next level? Gym Rat Performance Training is where Pittsburgh's elite competitors go to train. We specialize in personal training, strength, speed, and agility training, sports-specific training, and we offer the best basketball player development in the City of Champions. If you are ready to transform your body, expand your mind, and reach your potential, it's time to join the Rat Pack at gymratpt.com. That's GYMRATPT.com. Gym Rat Performance Training, punishing Pittsburgh since 2016 because rats don't rest. Carnegie Ironworks is Pittsburgh's go-to for artistic, unique, and decorative steel and iron designs. We provide custom fencing, interior and exterior railings, outdoor fire pits, window coverings, and much more. If you can think of it, we can fabricate it. Find us on the web at www.carnegieiron.com. That's Carnegie Ironworks, for when you need it, for 500 years.
All right, and we're back here on Three Rivers Broadcasting. I'm Alex Fidryshevsky for the Corner Kick. We are live on Mondays, 7 o'clock. And just a quick weather update. It's stormy out there right now in western Pennsylvania. We had some wicked ones blow through this afternoon, but it looks like there's a cold front coming through. Temperatures are only going to be in the mid-60s here. If you're up north of I-80, you may not even crack that tomorrow. So certainly won't feel like summer, even though it is, and we're right around the longest day of the year too. So we're going to be, unfortunately, going the other way, ladies and gentlemen. That's never fun. I like when its sun is out until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And we were up in Michigan last summer and went to Muskegon for vacation. That's still in the Eastern Time Zone. It was like 10:45 at night, and the sun's still out there. That was nice. We're out at a park eating dinner. Did takeout and just went and ate in a park dinner. It was beautiful, beautiful until late at night. But hey, unfortunately, we're gonna go the other way now, and It's like Scotland out there right now. I talked about Scotland in the last segment. It's like Scotland out there right now. It's rainy and dreary, and at least it's going to be sunny after this, the next few days. Now let's bring it on home. We got to talk about our hometown professional team here in Pittsburgh. That's right, we've got one. If you don't know, you know now. The Pittsburgh Riverhounds, and they're playing better right now. The season started off a little rocky, but they have certainly steadied the ship. They're now in second place. Some great results for the Riverhounds. They had a 7-point week, so let's review it. They tied Miami at Highmark Stadium 1-1. A good crowd there, 3,100 people. And again, they did a good job to hold the fort down and get the draw there. They scored early. Russell Cicerone, former Riverhound Cristiano Francois, had the equalizer for Miami in that one. Then they went on the road to Indianapolis on the 15th and came away with a 1-0 win over Indy 11. So that was last Tuesday at Carroll Stadium in Indianapolis. They went down to 10 men in the 62nd minute. Tommy Williamson was the one who scored the goal. Free kick, rolled over the line, hit off a defender. Jelani Peters took a second yellow card, was sent off. And in spite of Indy pressing, Pittsburgh was rock solid in the back. I believe it was 6 or 7 shots they held Indy to. And Jake Leaker got his first shutout for the Riverhounds. So that was a good, positive result. Danny Rovira was, I think, the general consensus, and I know the Hounds picked him as their man of the match as well. And high-energy player the whole time. And that was, again, a very, very big win, and it was a rough and tumble affair. The Hounds took, 6 cards, and then another 2 for Indy. So it was a rough and tumble one, but they hunkered in, did what they needed to do, got 3 big away points, and then doubled their fun on Saturday night as they went down to Atlantic Division leading Tampa Bay Rowdies and came away with a pretty good looking 2-1 win. Now this is a Tampa Bay team that handed Pittsburgh pretty rough defeat early on in the season. You could tell there were some jitters from the Riverhounds in that one, certainly not at the weekend. Danny Griffin and Russell Cicerone gave them 2-0 lead. Sebastian Guenzati scored halfway through stoppage time to pull one back, but too little, too late. The Hounds were the better team on the day. And they did it out. They did it without hunkering. They came out at a much higher level than they did in May. They pushed the action. They were far more aggressive. They had some chances early on, too. And it was their first ever win at Al Lang Stadium. And they hadn't beaten Tampa since 2017. And Tampa's establishing themselves as one of the premier USL clubs, specifically in the East. So that's 2 really, really big wins for the Riverhounds. Canardo Forbes had an assist on Cicerone's goal in the 55th. That's Cicerone's 5th of the season. And to show the magic of Bob Lilly, that's tying his career high for goals in a season, and it's only 9 matches in. Now, I could talk about how much Bob Lilly means to the Pittsburgh Riverhounds all night, because he's the master I think that's the best way to put it. He's the master of minor league, if you want to call it minor league soccer, because I think, and I'm going to call it minor league soccer because MLS is the equivalent of baseball's Major League Baseball. And for folks in Pittsburgh, the easiest way for me to relate it to non-soccer people is he's the minor league maestro. But he is the guy who knows how to win at the lower league level in the United States. He did very well in Rochester. And then talk about a match made in heaven over the last few years with this guy in Pittsburgh. You got the right owner at the right time, willing to make the investment in the manager. And Bob Lilly knows how to take a roster of little-known players, guys right out of college, cast-offs, also-rans, and retreads, and go to the top of the table. He's done it a couple of times here now. They built up and moved on a handful of players who came in with very little fanfare, gave a hometown kid a shot a couple of years ago, Robbie Mertz, who's moved on now. He knows how to put together a roster, and he knows when guys have reached their welcome, for better or worse, that, hey, it's time to go get paid the next step, or, hey, this didn't work out. And he's never afraid, and I think it's something we're finding the Riverhounds as an organization are doing. They're not afraid to take a chance on a guy who has maybe had a knock or is on the way down at the end. They gave, Ben Zemansky's last year was here, and he was fantastic. And he's now coaching in college, back out west. But he was a local guy from the region, not Pittsburgh, but he was regional guys from Ohio. And his last year was here, and I really enjoyed watching him play, and it was a treat. Now they're working with Josh Gatt, and this was a player who had so much potential, in his younger years, who ran into just some really rough times with injuries. He had signed with Indiana. He had an opportunity to play there. He skipped that to go to Rheindorf Altach in Austria. Played well there, and he was one of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's first signings at Molde. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who's now the manager of Manchester United, signed him. Played pretty well for the first, year and a half, 2 years he was with them. And then in 2013, he took a really serious injury. He was out for the rest of the year and missed 2014 rehabbing the injury. He was out for 20-plus months, came back, played 4 minutes, and did his knee again. So it was his third operation, in just a couple of years. He ended up with the Colorado Rapids, bounced around to a few other teams. Rheindorf took him back for a season, then he came home. And now he's here with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds at 29 years old, who, a player who still has something left in the tank. And I think that they wouldn't have him here if he didn't still have something left in the tank. And I'm hoping that we'll see more of Josh Gatt over the course of the season, and that he can find, fitness and confidence and stay healthy. But right now they've got a very good, very, very good team. And they've pulled it together again when at the start of the season, it looked like it was going to be a little up and down. The Riverhounds are usually a little thin at the start of the season just because of the way they sign their players. A lot of guys they'll take guys who were drafted in the MLS draft, and maybe they don't pan out with their MLS teams. And it's getting harder and harder for college players to do that now. For every Daryl Dike now, there's 20 guys who don't make an impact at all and are gone in preseason camp. the academy game has stepped up that much now. But these guys can still be very good players down at the USL level, and that's what you start to see with the Riverhounds, where let's start picking a guy here, picking a guy there. They brought in, some experienced players this offseason. Cicerone was one of them, who's found himself, now with, again, 5 goals on the season. It's career high. It's a busy schedule right now. It's another short week coming off of the win, but they got Red Bull Academy, New York Red Bull 2, essentially the Academy at this point. New York Red Bull's reserve team Friday at Highmark at 7 o'clock. Pittsburgh beat them 3-0 on the 28th in Montclair, 28th of May in Montclair. And the Red Bulls, they call them the Baby Bulls. They're 2-2-5, and this time they really are the Baby Bulls. I think we are seeing a return just like how Jesse Marsh wanted it to run, that kind of went sideways under the last regime there with Chris Armas and those guys. A return to the academy system that Red Bull has designed all of their clubs to operate at. So if you're a Pittsburgh fan, this one is worth watching and going to, because you're going to see some guys who will probably be in Europe at some point. Not all of them from this New York Red Bull 2 team, but you're going to find a couple of kids that are going to be gone. And they're back to not just playing with youth, where they brought in, a Brian White and a Barlow and guys who were, they played a year or two in college, maybe like Alex Mule, who's now in Nashville. And then, brought them into the top Red Bull team, the senior team, and then kind of jettisoned them off if they didn't pan out. They're going even younger this time. I looked at the roster for the May 28th game. They played, I think it was 7 or 8 guys in that game who are high school kids, age-wise, 17, 18 years old. So if you want to see a potentially future of what Red Bull New York will look like, that's a game to go see this Friday night. There will be some really good young talent on display from the New York side. And, the Hounds, who did look good against them on May 28th, they should be coming in feeling very confident, knowing that they've had a great run of form. They'll be at home. There should be a big crowd behind them. Now that all the restrictions are lifted, they can really go to capacity again. And they should get the job done. And I'm confident saying that. They should get the job done. When this Red Bull team has a lot of prospects, but they're still they're prospects. They're high school kids, a lot of them. The Riverhounds should be able to get past them again. Will it be 3? You don't know. And in this team, this Baby Bulls could surprise, because these kids got potential. But again, the Riverhounds are rounding into being another strong unit under Bob Lilly. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but I strongly suggest that if you are looking for something to do on Friday night, head on down to Highmark Stadium. It's one of the best sports atmospheres you're going to find, in soccer in this country at the USL level. It's a small stadium. They're not a lot of USL teams. They go play in baseball stadiums, which I get, and I think it's a smart idea. You have these baseball stadiums, and a lot of them are, the baseball owners have gotten involved in things like that at the minor league stadiums, and by and large, they're set up. They've got concourses, they got all that already. Why not? If you're a baseball owner, well, okay, let's maximize the time, or if at least we'll sell out the stadium to the team to use, or if you own the team yourself, you're going to run it. This is a nice environment. It's an intimate environment down on the river. Seats about 6,000 fans, and there's not a bad seat in the house. You're right on top of the action. Whether you're in, section 102 row Z. You know, it's not that far up. It's not like being in the second deck of a stadium somewhere. It's one small deck. If you drive out the highway going through downtown, you've seen the ground. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to go watch a game. One of the best views in sport. It's right up there with the baseball stadium across the street. I mean, across the river. Pittsburgh's very blessed with that we've got some of the greatest views in sports out of our stadiums. Makes for great TV too. But again, it's a great family-oriented environment. It's affordable. That's another thing. Some sports, even in our market, some of the major pro sports teams, they're not affordable anymore. We'd love to go, you'd love to go watch them, but they're not as, it's very expensive to go to an NFL game. It's very expensive now to go to an NHL game. Riverhounds games are still, they're still affordable for the family. You can take the kids out and, get a couple of hot dogs and some sodas, and it won't break the bank. And, compared to a lot of other sports, it's also an earlier night. The game, if the match starts at 7, by 9:30, you're on your way out. So it's it's a great environment. It's a great atmosphere. There's some great folks down there, not just the folks working at the club, but the people you'll talk to in the stands. A lot of them super knowledgeable about the game. And, I'm biased because I go down all the time. But I love going to, going to Riverhounds matches. It's one of my favorite things to do here in Pittsburgh. As far as sports goes, it's number one for me. And, I know everybody, if you know me, I'm a soccer guy. But for me, it's the best environment that I've been to in the USL, and I've been to a few of them, but I love it here. I love going to the games down there. Consider this my sales pitch for Friday night. It's fun. It's affordable. It's a quick game. If you've got young kids, it's perfect because you can have them home and in bed by 10 o'clock. And it doesn't break their routines or anything like that, and they're going to have a lot of fun. There's giveaways. They give away, I don't know what they're doing this year. I haven't been down just yet. This will be probably the first time. They give away cookies and all of this kind of stuff. They do good stuff down there. Again, they're, without getting into too much of the specifics, it's a good organization. They've been very nice to me. Their ticket team has been very helpful getting us into the stadium and getting extra seats and getting into to the upstairs area where I go sit now with the VIPs with Man City Tim and Notts County John and all of these guys who are kind of the legends of the Tartans and that I've gotten to know. It's a great night out. So, if you're looking for something to do in Pittsburgh, we've got a professional soccer team, and they're darn good. And they've now been good for several seasons, and nobody in Pittsburgh wants to talk about it. And I can go off on that, about how the City of Champions doesn't want to support one of its best teams. But there's a good, solid fan base that shows up for every game. And as the season wears on and they get better, the crowds get bigger. But again, I would suggest that if you're looking for something to do, you want to have a fun Friday night, go down to the Red Bull match this Friday. Riverhounds hosting them. You'll see some very good players that are coming through the Red Bull system and a red-hot Riverhounds team that I think deserves the support of Pittsburgh as a major sports franchise in the city. And I'm not afraid to say it. They're a heck of a lot more successful than the baseball team with an owner that actually gives a damn and invests in the ground, invests in the roster, invests in the coach, invested in the academy, invested in the training ground that they're partnered in with Allegheny. And they get treated like a second-class citizen in this city, which isn't right. Because they're successful and they deserve the buzz. And it deserves to be the mainstream buzz because the buzz is there in the soccer community in the area. People come out from within the soccer community in Pittsburgh. But they deserve coverage as a major organization here in Western Pennsylvania because they're well rooted into the community too. They get out and do a lot. I'll end my rant there, but that's where I'm at with the Pittsburgh Riverhounds from a media perspective. This is a team that deserves major coverage at every game. They've got a TV deal now, which is great. But there can be more. If we can talk about in the fourth inning, the Pirates pitcher threw a curveball that got hit 550 feet into the water every single day as they drift further and further out of the playoffs. Or we can talk about the Steelers 6 months away. We can talk about the Pittsburgh Riverhounds in Pittsburgh, especially because they're successful. And if nobody wants to talk about it, we'll talk about it every week. They're Pittsburgh's team. So we'll tell you what's going on with the Riverhounds every week here on Corner Kick. Because we're Pittsburgh's sports soccer show. We've run out of time on this one. So again, head on out Friday night. The Riverhounds are home against Red Bull 2. You'll see some, again, really good young players from Red Bull 2. And again, Pittsburgh's very solid right now. I think the Riverhounds have turned the corner, and I think the summer is going to be a fun one here for soccer fans in Western Pennsylvania and in the Panhandle of Northern West Virginia that come on over to the games. They'll be home again on Saturday, July 3rd for the Charlotte Independence. That's always a fun time when they're home around fireworks in Pittsburgh. They got 2 more home games towards the end of July. The return home game with Tampa Bay is Wednesday, August 18th, so you may want to circle your calendars for that one already. But Friday night's the next one, June 25th, 7 p.m. Be down at Highmark Stadium. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility, and we've got a winning team here in Pittsburgh in the summer. And they play down on the river, and it's the Pittsburgh Riverhounds. It was a great week for them. Great week. You take 7 points with road games involved and tie a pretty decent Miami team. But the big ones are really to take the road games. And you take one in Indy with 10 men, and then you go down to Tampa, which is a tough place to go in because it's hot, it's humid, and they're a quality side, and they went down there and took the points. So head on out to Highmark to support the Riverhounds this weekend. We're going down. We might be taking the whole staff. We're just waiting to hear back from our interns, see who's going to be coming. But we're going to try to take the whole staff down for Riverhounds and Red Bull this weekend. So maybe you'll see us down there. If you do, come on up, say hello to myself, say hello to Coach. We'd love to get to meet you. But again, we're out of time here, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the Corner Kick. We'll be back next time. God bless. Have a great night. Ciao for now. Steve Fox, Street Corner Doo-Wop, up next.
The Guard Market is a digital marketplace that provides customers with access to licensed security